Yeah, well, let's dig in. Hello, everybody. I'm David Cooks, and I tell you what, we know that paralysis can take on many forms. It can be physical, like mine. It can
do anything you put your mind to.
And what we try to do is feature stories that go from difficult places to fulfilling purpose.
What seems impossible can be done by you.
He's a businessman. He's an executive producer of movies, very successful movies, one of which I was kind of cast in a little bit.
May knock you down, but don't let it stop you.
He is a speaker that talks about business and social entrepreneurialism. He's got stuff published all over the place. He's spoken at Harvard. He's done a lot of stuff.
Your focus, David, on partnerships is, I think, so critical. It's on the one hand obvious, yet like anything important, you have to develop intentionality around things. Nothing is dynamic, my dad likes to say, until it's specific. In all aspects of life, we need to understand how to be intentional about creating life-giving partnerships.
Got so much to give, a lot of life to live. You must go from paralysis to purpose.
Get your pen and paper out.
Yeah,
I'm taking notes.
Paralysis to purpose.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. I'm your host, David Cooks, and I tell you what, I say this every week, but I am just the most fortunate guy in the entire world to get to sit down and interview some of the most impactful and inspirational and motivational people in the entire world. Today is no exception. He's a businessman. He's an executive producer of movies. Yes, like very successful movies, one of which I was kind of cast in a little bit, called The Ultimate Gift. In addition to that, he's done some educational documentaries, running the Sahara. He produced that thing with Matt Damon, and War Child with Emmanuel Zhao. He is a speaker that talks about business and social entrepreneurialism. He's spoken at the UN. He's spoken at the Nobel Peace Prize forums, FinTech in London. He also is an author. He's written on the intersection of business and social responsibility. You know, he's got stuff published all over the place. He's spoken at Harvard. He's done a lot of stuff. And I know I keep going. He's co-authoring a new book with John Stahl-Wert that is called Great to Good. And I know it's going to be fantastic. So, you know, there's more that we could talk about. His resume, if I actually read it to you, would be a whole podcast. So I'm not going to do that today. But that is enough. And I am honored. I've known this guy since I was 14 years old, I think.
Yeah.
And you read about him in my book, Getting Undressed from Paralysis to Purpose. Welcome to the podcast, Jim Van Eerden.
Thank you, David. What an honor. What an honor. And actually, you're getting older. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
I had all these flashback images of you in your tracksuit at 14, and you're.
Yeah, I would call myself getting better. And yes, I'm getting older, but you know, it's all good stuff. So we're gonna a great time today, and looking forward to that. I've known you almost all of my life, and I didn't ever think I would hear the word environmental come out of your mouth. You know, I knew you've always been an entrepreneur. You've always been a business mind. You've always been a market. That sales side of you is amazing. You've always been just exceptional at that. And something has happened with you. And I think it is as you've made some of these connections, as you now talk about omni-wins and social responsibility and leaving the world a better place after you're gone. How did you grow into who you are now? And you're doing things now, Arbor Day Foundation, trying to plant 100 million trees. And I don't think you eliminated anything out of your life. I think that was an addition to your life. Can you kind of walk us through how that changed?
That definitely is true, David. I mean, you know that I have always been very faith-centered and really have sought to live a life that honors God. But coming out of school, I really went onto a bit of a gerbil wheel in retrospect in trying to focus on creating economic value and thinking that was really the central goal for me in that season and that stage of my life. And I was looking at a lot of peers laterally who were, in that same kind of gerbil on a wheel race. And I'm in God's grace, I made some really good decisions to keep my life balanced. My wife Rachel's just amazing, as you know. We have 11 kids. That tends to keep you humble and to keep you balanced.
And to keep you working, and to keep you working too.
Yes. And it's an amazing thing talking about our relationship over the years, to think that our oldest son is now in his early 30s and you're his godfather. So it's like, wow, we've come a long way, baby. But anyway, yeah. But I got to tell you, 2001 was huge for me in terms of my paralysis to purpose journey, because we had started a business here when we moved to North Carolina. It grew to 150 employees. And then through a merger combination, pre-IPO, I got booted out of my own company, the company I started with my mom and my brother-in-law in my basement. I did have a really transformational experience in that when that company that we had birthed, which was focused on helping global 2000 companies compete against the dot-coms that were rising around them and eating up their market share. And there was enormously important work that we were doing as it related to their quarterly earnings reports. And that was the focus. How can they win in the contest for money? And when I exited the business, I had that the desire to take some of what I had learned and apply it in the market, but I had a non-compete. But my non-compete did not include taking that Action Jackson kind of skill set to high-impact entrepreneurs. So we created another business. It's called Helix, and Helix, is, you might know, is the structure of the DNA that gives us our physical attributes. And what I was beginning to focus on at the time was that value creation really was something that reflected the Imago Dei, the image of God in us, that we were designed to create things, to build things, to do things. And it was ultimately a reflection of our spiritual DNA. So I started working with people at an individual level. Usually these people had been through a couple of public exits with their own businesses. So they had a lot of resource that they were stewarding, and they were looking to team with me to help get other things done now that they were out of those big corporate boxes. And that venture, put us in a place, as you know, where we were producing films and publishing books and launching new business ventures with these industry icons, creating philanthropic ventures and so forth. And what I saw, David, is that, the stuff of the soul that these people wanted to see reflected in their work in the world was what was most compelling. The financial performance was important in terms of creating sustainability and resource and everything else. But what really drove these people, especially the people that had already earned all the money they could ever imagine earning in a life, what was most motivating to them was being purposeful, really having a clear intention and intentionality with regard to their purpose for being. So that was, in terms of my perspective, that began to create a pivot in me from that season of paralysis where I just exited the company that I put my life into and was looking to see what was next. It was what helped reframe my perspective to see that being intentional about the connection between performance and purpose was really important.
I thought 2001 was a transition point for you, but I didn't know about you being kicked out of your own company. I just saw that you went to Helix and you began to focus on investing in socially good companies. And for me, that I thought that would be the springboard for our conversation about what you do now and how that impacted it. But you even went deeper with the story of your own company, and you get kicked out, and now you're sitting there in a moment of reflection.
Yeah, and that was, from a business point of view, that was the hardest season of my life without question. And I look back on it, and it was the most important season of my life. And I literally needed to go back to school. I went to Wake Forest to do my MBA just so that I could think about what had just happened, because I felt like I had just gone through political coup, the 501 graduate course, and but it also just gave me an opportunity to get out of the vortex and to look at what I could do well, and what I really didn't do well. And what I realized is that I was holding on to this sense that if I was going to be a successful CEO, even as our company was scaling beyond my native ability to manage it, that I had to manage it. And rather than building a team, leaning into partnerships that could take my strengths and complement them with others otherwise inclined, and make magic of the moment. And a lot of entrepreneurs do that as they start to run their businesses to scale. They think they've got to hold on with an iron grip, and that if they don't, in every aspect of their business, if they can't micromanage across the enterprise, that they're failing as a leader. And one of the things I learned, there were things that I could do relatively well, but they weren't really the things that I was born and built to do well, which means that when I did them, I would lose energy. Whereas when I do the things that God's made me to do, then I gain energy. It's a huge difference in terms of strengths that a lot of leaders don't understand. They think that because they can do something well, it must be what they're supposed to do. But if they are reflective, if they have the opportunity to be reflective, hopefully not by getting kicked out of their own company, then what they can realize is that some of those things that they're doing drain them as they do them, even if they can do them well. And they'd be much better delegated to teammates or partners, so that they can focus on the things that actually gain them energy.
I think that your natural giftings are tied to your purpose. That's just one of the things that I believe in. And yes. How did you bridge that strength struggle you talked about? Being zapped on one side and being energized on the other. And how did you make that work?
And I just again, as I said, like many entrepreneurs, I held on to the belief for too long that if I couldn't do all those things, plus the things that I was naturally inclined to do, like selling and strategy, seeing, selling, motivating to action. Those are the things that I love to do naturally. And that as I did them, gave me energy. I was instead thinking I had to do the financial management, the people management, the administration of the business, and it scaled past me. And I didn't realize it. And so it was burning me out at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like being a head coach of a basketball team, and you're sitting and trying to do the practice plan, the game plan, wash the jerseys, get the water ready, get the buses going, all the things that go with running a successful basketball program, that you have assistants that are supposed to help. You have an athletic director who's supposed to help. You have parents who are supposed to help, but you take all of that on, and then you lose your energy to coach. The thing that you're supposed to really do is be there to motivate and coach your players, and your energy level is gone.
And that's why, your focus, David, on partnerships is, I think, so critical. It's on the one hand obvious, yet like anything important, you have to develop intentionality around things. Nothing is dynamic, my dad likes to say, until it's specific. And so you can be very intentional about creating a go it alone culture, and actually go it alone life. George MacDonald famously said the one principle of hell is I am my own. And I think that's true in all aspects of life. We need to understand how to be intentional about creating life-giving partnerships. And ultimately, that's all about people. It's about, understanding the value, appreciating the value of other people and what they bring as individuals or organizations to you that you, in all humility, need.
And I know partnerships are important to you and what you do now, and it always has been. Could you share a little bit about that?
I've been really shaped in my understanding of that by an entrepreneurial mentor who I've been privileged to know for many years, Tom Darden, who's launched and managed billions of dollars of development in the environmental space, and has overseen the advance of hundreds of businesses that have some kind of, in most cases, a clean environment impact on society. But anyway, Tom has said to me on many occasions that when he started investing in other companies at scale, he prioritized product. He was looking for the most ingenious products, and that's what he would invest in. He said about 10 years on, he's changed that strategy and started investing in markets, because he saw that sometimes products were great, but they didn't have markets that they could scale into, and so they didn't amount to much. And so he began prioritizing market potential as the lead driver for what he'd invest in or what he wouldn't. And he said ever since, he's realized, and looking back over that whole portfolio of investments, that in fact, the key driver to success was the people that he was partnering with. And that's why I love your focus as part of the movement from paralysis to purpose on perseverance, David. My favorite word in all the scriptures, everybody who knows me well knows this, is that old English word steadfast. So when I think about perseverance, I think about steadfast. And to me, that's a trait that I look for in people that I partner with. And it's really hard, by the way, to be steadfast, to persevere over time, if you don't have perspective.
We hope you're enjoying Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Paralysis to Purpose for more updates. Also, check out David's website at davidcookspeaks.com to learn more about his mission and purchase his book, Getting Undressed, From Paralysis to Purpose.
So let's talk a little bit more about of Fifth Element, the company that you're the CEO of, and an Omni-win. Could you just define what an Omni-win is?
Yes. So the idea that we now call the Omni-win model was originated by my friend and co-founder at Fifth Element, Ed Martin, who had played executive roles at Ford and Coke and Kellogg's and Hershey, most recently before we partnered together on this venture, and had seen that it was too often the case that when people considered strategy, they weren't considering all the stakeholders that were affected. And that they actually felt that if it wasn't a me first approach to the modeling, that they would lose, that the model would be less effective, and that the goal was to get more for, me, myself, and I. And he worked to frame things differently, where he was given as an executive a mandate at Hershey, for example, to engage 10,000 moms in a survey. And he said, hey, if I can engage 10,000 moms in a survey and have them do it because money is going to Boys and Girls Club of America, is that okay? And as he began getting permission to do that kind of thing, what he realized is that those moms would participate effectively at a lower cost to Hershey. They would be more engaged with the study. They would come out of the study wanting to support Hershey more than just an ordinary paid panelist. And at the end of all that, Hershey was able to write a check to Boys and Girls Club and generate all that brand warmth. And he described it as an Omni-win model. And we began to probe and explore with that model in a variety of different contexts for some of the biggest nonprofit and for-profit brands in the world. And it took us, David, to this thesis that we now take to these brands all over the world, that you can perform better by doing more good. And it sounds antithetical. It sounds like if you're going to do more good, you're giving stuff away, you're not going to perform in terms of your bottom line as well. And we are showing, whether it's hiring people or whether it's marketing a brand or whether it's gathering key information with regard to a brand, that actually the thesis can hold. It's still about executing well, which is what we've learned to do as a company. And we've learned to do that by trial and error, by the way. We've made our fair share of mistakes and learning how to create impact that spikes performance. But it's now starting to run to scale. And you can see it in consumer demand. You can see it in the way that brands, for better or for worse, are responding to public opinion on issues. And increasingly, consumers, especially the rising generation, is saying, we're going to buy product or not based on whether or not we believe that your brand champions things that matter to us.
And Jim, that's no different than it's always been. It's just, is it a little bit more focused now in this generation?
Yes, I think it is, because never has business shown itself to be more a force for good, whether you're talking about feeding the hungry or whether you're talking about putting shoes on the feet of the poor, or whether you're talking about cleaning up the environment. Businesses are the ones creating the resource and leading the initiatives that are getting it done. And people are understanding that connection in a way that they haven't before. So they're increasingly expecting it from the brands that earn their patronage, to be focused on initiatives that result in a flourishing humanity and a better environment for all of us to experience and to pass on to our kids. Those are really encouraging and important trends, I think, to see in business.
You talked about consumers are interested in product that has purpose tied to it. That today's consumer, they definitely want to buy into a cause, buy into a service or of some sort. Let's talk about the Fifth Element Group for a moment. You're the CEO of this group now, and one of the things that I found interesting about it is you have put together a very diverse group of leadership for this organization. I want you to talk about the importance of diversity, what that means to you, and why that's important. You know, one of the things that I've learned to do the older I've gotten is I've learned to sit with what I don't necessarily agree with at the table. I've learned to understand that people may have opposing views, but that should not prevent us from having community or from having conversation. That hasn't always been my approach. That hasn't always been my thought process.
At the most fundamental level, diversity to me means a celebration of differences that makes a community healthy and whole, and doing that in a way that honors and lifts up all people who carry the image of God, and yet that allows for differences of viewpoint that can be material. And we as a company at Fifth have been really blessed. I think this has a lot to do with some of the other early leaders on the team. Ed Martin was the co-founder of Fifth Element, and he just has done a beautiful job of creating a life-giving community and environment that has enabled us to organically engage with other people who similarly value diversity and the importance of it. And now we've literally been blessed with a global network of people who just enable us to see things in the round, to have that 360 point of view that enables us also to connect with others that we're trying to serve that represent some aspect of that 360 mosaic. I think it's really hard to be whole without a healthy definition as an organization of diversity. Now, unfortunately, I think diversity can also play the role of tyrant. And actually, in the name of tolerance, we can become remarkably intolerant, which is equally unfortunate. But there's a real need for leaders who carry a balanced view of healthy, holistic diversity into organizations, into families. You know, I'm the father of an interracial family, as you know, and into their churches and beyond, especially at a time when so many people have been siloed and are not engaged in authentic community, in part because of the move toward everything, it seems, going digital, going virtual. So really important challenge to process that uncomfortableness, including the uncomfortableness sometimes of being person to person versus being virtual and digital, is a part of the way that we grow up as people and the part of the way that we experience authentic community.
The statement you made about how we can become intolerable in the midst of becoming tolerant, and how I tell people we become selective while in the midst of what we think is being inclusive, and we become divisive in the midst of in the midst of what we are trying to call diversity. And I think that it's a very layered conversation, but I think your points are right on point about we can't be whole without it. And we need to, and we don't need to have people who aren't a part of our community. There shouldn't be an outlier in our community. Our community should be the community. And like you said, sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes that's challenging, but it is making us whole when we do that. Hey, Jim, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is jim@fithelement.group. That's 5thelement.group. And I look forward to connecting with some of the folks that have listened in.
Jim, thank you for being with us today and for sharing your journey from Paralysis to Purpose with our audience. And remember, until next time on Paralysis to Purpose, the podcast, always remember that your ability to endure is always greater than your willingness to endure.
You can do anything you put your mind to.
Thanks for tuning in to Paralysis to Purpose. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paralysis to Purpose on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To purchase his book, visit davidcookspeaks.com. Be sure to tune in next time for more inspiring conversations with David Cooks.
You know what? I love the community. Yes, I can sing, I can dance, I can act and all that stuff, but it was the community. It was like getting together with the cast, learning the material, just seeing how things work, from the choreographer to the stagehands to the people building the set. I remember my first off-Broadway show that I did called Another Chance. We did it at the Samuel Beckett Theater on 42nd Street. And I still remember the smell of the wood, of the building of the stage, and just meeting new people in that world of, we put it on this production, we have to go to rehearsals, and we have to do press. And I love the community of it.
Next time on Paralysis to Purpose, Dave welcomes actress and author Jeanette Byardell.
And then it's like an extra bonus once you see the product of all your hard work. Once you're on the stage and the people come in, they laugh and they cry, and the critics come, they like it, they don't like it. I love the community of theater.
Paralysis to Purpose.